What can you tell us about the crazy ride that people go on when they sit down for this movie?
The crazy ride. It's meant to be terrifying. I can tell you. Look, this would be. I would tell you less than the trailer tells you. Okay, so I would say a woman as a child has a trauma, and she grows up, and that trauma comes back to haunt her, and that trauma has brought its family.
How do you do that without giving it away? I mean, we meet a family, the Wilsons, and the mother, Adelaide, is riddled with this trauma from her childhood that she cannot explain or shake off. And she's convinced as they're on their way to their summer home in Santa Cruz that something bad is going to happen. And she's proven right when at the end of the day, these four shadowy figures show up at the top of their driveway and their worst nightmare ensues.
The core of this film is really a family story of moving forward. A family trying to essentially get things back on track. They were originally trying to have a summer vacation, and then they are confronted with this horrific image of what appears to be themselves. And they're just trying to survive the encounter. Outside of that, there's a lot of commentary on social issues and social themes, but at the core of it, it's really, you can get attached to this family and their dynamic.
No one is perfect.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that I would definitely say that you are going to have many conversations with people, and you're probably going to want to see it a couple more times to really understand it.
What was the inspiration for you when you sat down to write it?
Many inspirations. When I was a kid, I saw this episode of Twilight Zone called Mirror Image, which was written by Rod Serling about a doppelganger at a train station, and it scared me. I used to think about a doppelganger across the subway platform as a kid. So I always had that. I always start with something that every time I think about it, it scares me, because that's my engine. That's my horror engine. From there, I thought about, what is that about? And really, I studied doppelgangers. I went and this idea of the shadow self, which comes up in many cultures, many mythologies, and it tends to be this sense that there is a darker self that we suppress, and we suppress it because we are afraid of what it means, and it holds our guilts and our evil, really. So. Anyway, what was the question?
You just answered it.
Okay.
You used something that I am terrified of.
Okay.
It screwed me up with the Itsy Bitsy Spider being whistled, and you use it multiple times in this movie, which messed with my head. But there are so many homages, and Winston even told me he based his character on Uncle Phil. Can you talk a little bit about the Easter eggs that you sprinkled throughout this movie?
Well, the Uncle Phil, that one's news to me. I had no idea that he was going for some Fresh Prince in this movie. But no, look, one of my favorite things, as you sort of noted, is when horror movies take songs that aren't scary and put them in a scene, and after the movie you're like, okay, I will never look at Beach Boys' Good Vibrations the same way again. Like, that to me is just cool. It's just kind of like hijacking the connotations of a song. So I do that several times in this movie. And then, I do, the Easter egg game was so fun in Get Out. And so I went pretty crazy with it in this one. But, because I'll just scroll through the internet and to look at fan theories.
So Lupita compared doing this movie to mental gymnastics, trying to figure out how to play against yourself and said that you were invaluable. How do you direct a performance of the same person in two characters?
It's really hard. It's really hard, real challenge. I mean, and even more than one is when you have four characters, four actors playing against four characters by the same actors, and we wanted to shoot it like you would shoot 8 actors. So that means, not sort of oversell this idea that you have the same. So an audience's filmic language is just buys it. Emotionally was where it was really difficult. And Lupita, the way she took on both roles was to completely submerge herself. So, sometimes I had to be like, guess what? You have to start this day as this character and move to this day at the end, this character at the end of the day. And it was, a special challenge, but you're there with them. I'm patient with actors, even if like the clock is ticking and like money is burning. There's nothing more important than the actor feeling empowered to put their skill to maximize their skill.
Can you talk about what it's like to actually play against yourself?
It's weird. It's very weird. You never meet your scene partner, so it's imaginative gymnastics that you have to perform, and it's one thing to advocate for one character. It's another thing to have to see the world through the exact opposite lens and advocate as strongly and passionately for the other. And then so it was mind twisting, and took a lot of very deliberate and kind of like mathematical preparation to delineate between the two.
What is Jordan like as a director?
Jordan, he's amazing. He is so intelligent, and yet his intelligence never comes across as egotistical. He's a man who is an improviser, and because of his background in that, he's very collaborative, and the best idea wins. And he has a very strong idea, but he's always refining it, clarifying it, and he involves you in that process and really invites you to contribute whatever you can. And he's also a very adaptable director. He asked me very early on what my process was and what I needed from him, which is those are questions I don't hear very often. And he really tailor-made his directing to each of us. He would kind of adjust according to what we needed, how he talked to us, what he mentioned, and when he mentioned it. And I saw him do that with me. I saw him do that with Winston. I saw him do it with the kids, with Elizabeth and Tim, all of us. And so because of that, I think he's quite exceptional.
When you first read the script, do you remember what your reaction was?
I was really afraid. I distinctly remember my shoulders being up like so, and like me reading the script like this. I've never read a horror film, and it was the first one that I'd read, and I was terrified just reading it, and I immediately invested in the family, and I could tell that what I understood was just the surface, and that there was so much more. It was evident even in the script, and it took like speaking to Jordan and getting to really understand where he was coming from and what themes he was trying to explore to really, understand it in its entirety.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the characters you play and how you want audiences to sort of embrace them?
Well, I play Adelaide, who is the mom. She's an all-American mom, kind of a trophy wife even. And she is, she's the primary one that we experience this story through. And because of that foreboding sense that something is coming for her, she's on her toes. And Red, who is her doppelganger, her shadow, is coming for her. I can't say anything else without spoiling it.
Can you talk a little bit about your character?
Gabe Wilson is the all-American dad, but he is definitely fashioned around some of the dads that I had access to a lot, which was sitcom dads. So these TV dads that weren't afraid to be anything on any given day. You know what I mean? So, on Fresh Prince, Uncle Phil was able to be stern. He was able to be funny, goofy. He was really attracted and, sexually active with his wife, and you could tell that, the dad on Family Matters, all these dads, that I had access to. I fashioned Gabe off of them. I wanted people to feel like Gabe could be welcomed into their living room once a week.
I love that.
Yeah.
What was it like playing opposite yourself?
It was really cool, actually. We took it as a great opportunity instead of just a challenge. It was really an opportunity to almost act in two movies. So I got to see the movie through the lens of Gabe Wilson and the Wilson family. And then I got to see the movie through the lens of the Red family, which was just, you get, as much work as you can do and dig in and show flexibility and range and spectrum when you act is always just the best.
What is Jordan like as a director?
Oh man, Jordan is just so welcoming and warm, and he's a sharer. You know what I mean? Like if I were to create some sort of analogy, is like, you know, when you were a kid and you shared your toys, he would have been a kid that shares his toys. You know, his toys are the movies, his thoughts, his ideas, his emotions, his care. You know, he shares all those things with you, and he really brings you into his world, which is rich. And he does his best to create a space where you can do your best work.
Do you remember your reaction the very first time you read the script?
Oh man. First time I read the script, I sat for about 40 minutes just thinking about what I just got and being blown away with all the things that its tentacles were reaching out and touching, right? Because I feel like the film has these tentacles that are touching this thing in society, that theme, that construct, this construct, you know what I mean? Like this ism, that ism, you know? And I wanted to be a part of the conversation. I said, this is the kind of conversation that I need to be a part of as an artist at this time, you know? For the time that Winston is a part of this media, you know, and this age, I want to be a part of this.
Can you tell us a little bit about who you play?
I play Jason. He and I also play the Winston Lupita's son. It's an honor working with them, but Jason is he's to himself, and he lives in his own reality.
Yeah. Zora is a 13-year-old girl, and her relationship with her parents is starting to go from loving to embarrassing. She's mostly on her phone all the time. And she is the older sister to Jason. And I think that she really relates to a lot of teens.
You guys have to play two characters at the same time. What is that like? How do you do that?
Yeah, it was kind of challenging because we've never done anything like this before. But I love watching horror movies, so I think that I kind of got, you know, some of my inspiration from those movies, and definitely working with Jordan Peele. He helped us along the way with anything that we needed, anything that we really needed to understand. He would, you know, talk to us before or after we shot a scene.
Jordan would talk to us, like she said. He talked to us, he liked to add little things. Like, if he thought something was really cool, he'd ask us. And if we thought it was cool too, he'd, add something.
Right, yeah.
Like, when we didn't know what was happening, like, if we hadn't got the time to read the script yet, he'd actually do all of the roles. He'd actually do all the characters in one scene.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he gave us a lot of freedom.
Shadi, you said that you like horror movies, and there are so many horror references in this movie. What were some of your inspiration points?
I definitely love The Shining and The Babadook, and I think The Exorcist. Just even the makeup kind of reminded me of The Exorcist a little bit for Umbre. But I definitely love this character so much because she's so amazing, and she's like really, you know, fierce.
Can you talk a little bit about Winston and Lupita as your parents?
Winston is a very nice person. He's a jokester. He does funny things. And we even do things. He'd do this, he taps someone on the shoulder and we'd be like, Winston, how could you hurt her?
Yeah. They joke all the time. We're like a real family now. We're just like this, you know, fun, loving, healthy, all-American family.
What was your reaction the first time you read the script?
I was kind of shocked to see, you know, how well written it was, and I definitely knew that it was going to be amazingly directed. So I was mostly, you know, on the edge of my seat the whole time because, you know, I would read it all the time, on the train. But I think that I was definitely most excited to work with Jordan and to really just see his vision.
What about you, Evan?
What she said, I agree with her.